My name is Olivia, and I turned 68 this year. Late last year, I lost my husband unexpectedly to cancer. After his passing, I moved in with my eldest son, Noah. Originally, my husband and I had lived in the house where Noah and his family now reside. When Noah got married and had his first child, we relocated to a nearby one-bedroom apartment, leaving the house to him. At the time, Noah was struggling financially with his new business and couldn't secure a loan. Wanting to ensure stability for our grandson, my husband made the decision to pass the house down to Noah's family. Before we left, we renovated the home, making it look as good as new. Over time, Noah had 3 children, and while we didn't visit often, we maintained a good relationship, celebrating birthdays at restaurants and spending time together occasionally. However, when my husband was diagnosed with terminal cancer, his biggest concern became my future. He asked Noah to take me in after he was gone. I tried to assure my husband that I was still in good health and could manage on my own, but he'd insisted. Unable to refuse his father's last request, Noah reluctantly agreed. Ever since we gave up the house, I had never set foot inside again. I hesitated, thinking my daughter-in-law, Emma, might not be comfortable with my presence. So when I finally arrived, I was completely unprepared for what I saw. Not wanting to be a burden, I brought only a few belongings. The house, which had seemed fine from the outside, was in complete disarray inside. Shoes were piled up near the entrance, emitting a strange odor. Noah, ever forgetful, greeted me absent-mindedly, acting surprised. "Oh, was today the move-in day?" he asked casually. Then, as if it was an obligation rather than a choice, he muttered, "I only agreed because Dad asked me to, but honestly, there's no space here," before turning away. With no other choice, I followed him inside. The first floor was a mess. Shopping bags and trash covered the living and dining areas, making it look like something out of a hoarding documentary. Emma, lounging on the sofa, barely acknowledged me. "Mom, we don't have an extra bed, so you'll have to find a spot," she said before lying back down. "I'm exhausted from work." She runs a beauty salon, and from what I'd heard, she earns quite well. Noah, glancing at me, added, "I'm tired too, so could you clean up a bit?" Before heading upstairs, I silently started tidying up. As I did, Emma suddenly called out, "Hey, don't leave things in the hallway." Startled, I quickly apologized and moved them. "Oh, and don't throw anything away," she added before returning to the living room. After sorting through the overwhelming clutter, I was exhausted. Just as I was about to rest, Emma peeked in and asked, "Aren't you going to help with dinner?" Realizing it was already evening, I hurried to the kitchen, only to find it in complete disarray. Emma, unfazed by the mess, was frying large portions of meat. When I asked if I could assist, she gestured to the sink and said, "You can do the dishes. I thought you'd order takeout on days like this." Her tone carried a hint of irritation. I tried to remain cheerful. "I'm sorry, I wasn't thoughtful enough today. It was a busy day. How about we order food tomorrow?" That seemed to improve her mood slightly. "Sure," she replied with a faint smile. Trying to be understanding, I reminded myself that raising 3 kids while managing a business was no small task. Still, I couldn't help but be surprised by the household's eating habits. Dinner was just piles of meat and bread, with no vegetables or soup. Despite the chaos inside the house, Emma was strangely particular about clothing. She insisted on washing anything worn once and was strict about keeping the kids' outfits spotless. Outside, the family always looked well-dressed, which is why no one in the extended family had realized how disorganized their home was. Determined to make the living space more comfortable, I began cleaning diligently the next day. Since I didn't want to discard anything without permission, I lined up items neatly for Emma to check when she got home. At first, she seemed annoyed, but eventually she began brushing me off, saying, "It's fine, just throw it away." I didn't enjoy sorting through their things, but seeing the house, once my home, so neglected pained me. After about a month, I finally cleared out the excess clutter, and the house looked presentable again. The grandchildren were delighted, exclaiming that it looked like a house from TV. They happily rolled on the carpet, and their habit of leaving half-eaten snacks lying around gradually stopped. Noah and Emma never expressed gratitude, but I hadn't done it for recognition. However, I was unaware that Emma saw my efforts as criticism. One night, while getting up to use the bathroom, I overheard her talking to Noah over drinks. "What's with all the sarcasm from your mother?" she grumbled. No one asked her to clean. Noah, instead of defending me, simply said, "Don't say that," but added, "Honestly, if Dad hadn't insisted, I wouldn't have taken her in." Hearing this, my heart sank. Had I gone wrong in raising my son? I silently returned to my room. Lying in the dim space surrounded by my few belongings, I felt pathetic. But then I thought of my grandchildren. At least they would grow up in a cleaner environment now. That comforted me. After that, Emma became more distant. She ignored my cleaning and continued preparing the same meals, mostly meat and bread. Unable to stand the lack of vegetables, I suggested making a stew. Emma's response was cold. "Do whatever you want, but buy the ingredients yourself." Eventually, she stopped cooking altogether, leaving meal preparations to me. The children, likely lacking proper nutrition before, eagerly ate the fruits and vegetables I served. They even grew attached to me, making small requests like, "Grandma, can you add a fried egg to my curry?" One night, when Emma was working late, one of my grandchildren crawled into my bed. From then on, they preferred sleeping with me, even when their parents were home. This, I suspected, irritated Emma even more. By summer, Noah and Emma were planning a family vacation. Assuming I wasn't included, I felt relieved, until my eldest grandchild firmly declared, "Grandma is coming too, right?" Despite their reluctance, they couldn't refuse. Emma, clearly unhappy, made sure to remind me to handle breakfast prep and laundry, saying, "Since you're invited, that's the least you can do." Traveling with them was difficult. Being older, I needed frequent restroom breaks, which visibly annoyed Noah and Emma. At the amusement park, I decided to step back. "I'll rest at the cafe while you all have fun," I told them. As the children ran excitedly toward the rides, Emma returned briefly to inform me, "Make sure to cover your own expenses." Sitting alone in a cafe, I realized how out of place I was in such a setting. When the cafe became crowded, I moved outside to sit on a bench. Although I had worn a hat to protect myself from the sun, the midsummer heat was relentless. The next thing I knew, I was waking up in the amusement park's medical room. As I regained consciousness, I overheard a stern voice scolding my son and his wife. The person speaking appeared to be a doctor. "How could you leave an elderly woman alone like that?" It turned out that I had suffered from mild heat exhaustion. Normally, I would have been fine. But after waking up early to prepare breakfast, doing laundry, and enduring a long journey, I must have been more drained than I realized. My son and his wife looked visibly frustrated but decided to return to the hotel with me. Once we arrived, they led me to my room and before leaving muttered, "Please don't cause any more problems." Feeling weak, I lay down in the quiet room, staring at the ceiling. A thought crossed my mind. What was I doing with my life? Up until now, I had been so busy managing household chores and looking after my grandchildren that I never took the time to reflect. But now, it was clear, this trip was never meant for me. They had expected me to cook, clean, and take care of things without a second thought. Even now, after I had collapsed from exhaustion, they showed no concern for my well-being. As I lay there, it became painfully clear, if I were to grow old and fall seriously ill, they would likely leave me to fend for myself. Despite everything I had done for them, I was nothing more than an inconvenience. I had placed so much hope in my son, believing the love and care I gave him would be returned in my old age. But I was wrong. I had to start preparing for the worst. With that thought lingering in my mind, I drifted into sleep. Around 6:00 p.m., I heard a familiar voice calling out to me. "Grandma, are you okay?" It was my granddaughter, Emma. She had returned from the amusement park earlier than expected, seemingly worried about me. Behind her, my son and his wife whispered among themselves. Emma turned to them and said firmly, "Mom, Dad, I need to talk to Grandma alone. There are play areas in the hotel. Can you take my siblings there for a while?" Once the younger children had left, her kind expression changed. "You should know your place," she snapped at me. "Do you really think you deserve a vacation? You should just go home and do what you do best." Cleaning. I was taken aback. The trip was planned to last 2 more days, including visits to museums and art exhibits. I had hoped I could at least enjoy that part. "You want me to leave now?" "By train?" I asked, trying to hide my hurt. My son scoffed. "What else did you expect? We only took you in because of Dad's dying wish. Don't think you can just freeload off us." That was the moment I made up my mind. I stood up, packed my belongings, and called the hotel front desk to request a taxi. My grandchildren noticed me leaving. Sensing something was wrong, they asked, "Grandma, are you going home already?" I forced a smile. "I'm not feeling well, so I'll head back early. You enjoy the rest of the trip." They seemed unconvinced, but still smiled and said, "Okay, take care." When I got into the taxi, the driver asked, "Are you sure you want to travel this far?" I pulled out my platinum card and asked if I could pay with it. He nodded respectfully and drove me home in silence, making sure I was comfortable throughout the ride. Once I arrived, I didn't waste any time. I started cleaning up and made a decision. I would move back into my old condominium, which had been vacant and rented out for some time. The very next day, I packed up my belongings and left my son's house for good. Then, I made a call to my real estate agent. "I want to sell that house," I said firmly. A week later, my son called me in a fit of rage. He had just spoken to the real estate agent about the house being listed for sale. I went to meet him in person, keeping my composure. "I've made my decision," I said. "I'm cutting ties with you, and I'm selling the house. After all, the key to keeping things clean is getting rid of unnecessary clutter." Both my son and his wife stared at me in shock. "Wait," my son blurted out. "Wasn't this Dad's house? I should have inherited it." I met his gaze, unfazed. "Oh, you believe you inherited it?" "Of course," he snapped. I tilted my head slightly. "Do you remember transferring ownership into your name?" He hesitated, his anger faltering. "No, but I just assumed it became mine." I shook my head. "That's not how it works. This house has always been in my name." Their faces twisted in disbelief. "What do you mean?" Emma asked. "I mean exactly what I said," I replied. "And one more thing, you should prepare yourselves. I'm cutting off the financial support I've been providing for your business." My son's expression turned pale. "Financial support? What are you talking about?" I let out a quiet sigh. "You really don't remember, do you? Every month I've been transferring money to your bank account under the agreement that it would be used for business expenses." Noah's face drained of color. "I saw the deposits. I thought Emma was making that money." Emma's head snapped toward him. "Wait, that wasn't your earnings." Noah and Emma had always lived comfortably, never realizing that the money sustaining them came from me. At the beginning of their marriage, Noah didn't have enough capital to start his business. Since I wanted my grandson to have a stable future, I decided to invest in him. To avoid it being treated as an inheritance, I placed the funds under an asset management company in my name. However, because the company's name sounded similar to Emma's beauty salon, Noah must have assumed that the money came from his wife's earnings. Now reality was setting in. "You mean you were the CEO of that company?" Noah asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I gave him a firm nod. "Yes, and as of today, your funding is cut off." Noah's mouth hung open, unable to process what he was hearing. Emma, now furious, turned on him. "You idiot. You were never making money." Noah stammered, I thought I was going to inherit everything from Dad." I sighed. "Your father never had much inheritance to leave behind. Everything you've been living on was mine." For the first time, Noah and Emma realized just how wrong they had been. As I turned to leave, Emma grabbed my shoulder tightly. "Mother-in-law," she said, her voice trembling. "Don't you care about your grandchildren?" I met her gaze with cold resolve. "We can't choose our parents. I may have made mistakes in raising my son, but enabling his selfishness won't do my grandchildren any good." And with that, I walked away. Behind me, Noah and Emma erupted into a heated argument. "This is all your fault." "No, you're the one who messed up." In the end, I sold the house. With no more financial support, Noah's business collapsed. Soon after, he and Emma divorced. Neither of them wanted to take responsibility for the children, so I became their guardian. Now, with proper discipline and love, my grandchildren have grown into responsible young adults. They take care of me just as I once took care of them. Thank you for watching. See you in the next video. Stay tuned.